if you get your self-worth from yourself, from what you do, from what kind of person you are, from what values you have and what values you follow, then you don't really need this as much. It feels good to give people compliments, especially since you see how happy they become. Every time I'm talking to someone and they make an excuse, I get this like feeling. People being in conversations where they legit don't say anything about themselves, or basically nothing, and just ask questions about the other person, and then at the end the other person is like, man, I really like you, you're a really cool person, and they don't know shit about you. If you do something that's really bad, then why not do things that's good to try to at least make the difference smaller? Welcome, I am the self-improvement guy, and today we're going to have fun. That's not actually my voice, but let's react to the fastest way to ruin your entire life. And this is another one of those videos where he uses the mental model inversion. Basically, whatever he says, think about it backwards, because he's gonna describe what you shouldn't do, and then you just flip it around and then you know what you should do, which is a very good way to just look at things overall in life. But I'm not just gonna sit here and stare into the screen and not say anything. I might do that for a bit, but as you can see, this video is much longer than this video, so. But yeah, and I'm gonna try to spread, you know, good vibes, and it's gonna be fun. And I forgot to remove the book. It's just to make up the angle. Well, but I also got some headphones, so the volume for you is much better. So we're improving. But I'd say let's just go for it. Hopefully this will be good. We'll see. The last two videos, I think I've done two, they were pretty good, so I think it's solid. I think this guy is pretty cool. Oh, I forgot to put in the headphones. Maybe that's necessary when you're supposed to use them. I think I did it like this before. Yeah, let's just do it like this, I think. The only person you're destined to become is the person you decide to be. Ooh, that's pretty deep quote, man. Yeah, basically you're in control of your life is what it says, and it's so true. And I guess there's a lot of things in life that you can't control, but it's basically there's some quote, I think it goes, luck is when opportunity meets hard work, or when hard work meets opportunity. So basically there is a lot of times, you know, we're lucky in life. For example, if someone becomes successful, then they'll have an encounter, and then you'll say, oh, they were so lucky they had that encounter, which is true. But also, if they wouldn't have worked really hard to become a certain person, then they wouldn't have been, well, basically they worked really hard to become a certain person that was ready to grasp that opportunity fully. And there's a lot of people that get that same opportunity but that don't get the same result because they aren't the best yet, I suppose. But yeah, it's a good quote. And if you're wondering why I'm having my headphones like this and not on my head, it's because yesterday I tried to have them on my head, but then I couldn't think. It felt like it was going straight into my soul and disrupting all of my thinking. But I think when I have it like this, then it's a bit more separated, and then I can think better, I think. But we'll see. I think so though.
Here's another quick tutorial on how to ruin the rest of your life. Step 1. Close your body language. Go throughout life with a closed body language. Slouch your shoulders, keep your head down, don't make eye contact. Don't give anybody the impression that you're someone they can talk to or someone they can trust. Appearing...
It's also way less friendly, and even if you talk to people, then they'll probably assume that you don't like them. Of course, there's some exceptions with people that are really honest and sometimes might be too honest, and they might get through, but I don't really see how it's beneficial to make it harder for people to like you. or to talk to you. And it doesn't mean you should necessarily talk to everyone. I mean, if you don't like certain people and don't like the impact they have on your life, then you shouldn't talk to them, or at least as little as possible. But that doesn't mean that you should have closed body language in overall life, right? Because then you'll also miss the people that could have made your life so much better.
Anybody the impression that you're someone they can talk to or someone they can trust. Appearing socially unreceptive will reduce the amount of friends you make and keep spontaneous human interaction to a minimum, which is great. Now hopefully everyone can just get out of your way and leave you alone. Step 2. Check your phone. When in doubt, check your phone, even if you don't know why. Always look occupied so you don't have to interact with anybody you're not comfortable in.
So true. I think we probably have so many less spontaneous interactions in society today because we're always so locked in on our phone. And even with friends, I guess maybe you don't want to go around and talk to random strangers. Maybe you do, maybe you don't, I don't know. But I'd say this is at least more applicable when you put yourself in situations where you kind of want to talk to people. For example, if you're with your friends, or let's say you started a new job or at school or whatever, then if you just sit there with your phone compared to if you sit there and stare into nowhere, and of course if you smile as you do that, then that's better. And better than that is just to go around and talk to other people. But basically, the threshold for approaching you is so much lower when you're not occupied, I suppose. So yeah. And keep in mind that when I say yeah, I'm thinking backwards. Like, I'm assuming you do as well.
Interact. Always look occupied so you don't have to.
It's so funny. I know this guy at my gym. I don't talk to him that much, but he doesn't have a smartphone. He's basically going against all of that, partially because he doesn't think that it's necessary, and he knows that if he uses it, then he'll get sucked into all of these social medias, and I guess he recognizes the fact that in his mind he believes that he doesn't have the control. And of course, if you don't build it up, then that's probably true, but basically he doesn't want to deal with it. So sometimes when he's, maybe with his girlfriend out shopping for something, and he's waiting for her to change and try some new clothes, then he's just standing outside, and he just stands there without a phone and looks around and maybe even tries to talk to people. And if you don't know, I live in Sweden, and in Sweden usually you don't really talk to strangers. I suppose, especially if you're in a bigger city, I suppose. Maybe I'm wrong, but I've gotten that impression. So in cases like that, it can become pretty awkward because or maybe he doesn't even talk to them. I think he just looks at them, and when they look up from their phone, they'll see him looking at them, and they're like, That's pretty funny. But it was so funny. I watched part of Speed's live stream the other day, and he was in Stockholm, right? And he was just walking around and talking to random people, and who didn't know who he was, of course. And his reactions were, I think, what you could expect from normal Swedes. But it was so funny. It was so against what usually happens, and it was very fun. It was very fun to watch. It was like the ultimate main character move, I'd say, because it was so against the grain. It was so fun. But of course, the people that knew him were G's, so that was pretty cool, actually.
Check your phone, even if you don't know why. Always look occupied so you don't have to interact with anybody you're not comfortable interacting with. It could be awkward or unpredictable, so don't risk it. Tickle your brain.
Yeah, I definitely think it's probably gonna be awkward the first few times if you're not an avid doer of this. And even if the other person isn't, then you probably become awkward. But even though it will be awkward a few times, maybe you'll get through it, or maybe you won't, but you'll become better at it, and then in the end, you'll gain so much from it. So I think it's definitely worth it. It's like the first few times you do something, you're most likely not be that good, but then you become better and better, and even if it's awkward every time, you'll become more and more comfortable being in that awkwardness, and then it will become less awkward. I think I've heard it somewhere that one of the reasons why something's awkward is because you think it's awkward. So if you just go up to someone and say hi, and they don't say anything for 5 seconds, if I suppose maybe someone would say that's awkward, but if you don't think and believe that it's awkward, then it's not awkward for you. And if you act like it's not awkward, then I think the other person will be more comfortable. Because when you talk to someone and they act awkward, then it becomes more awkward, and then you start acting more awkward. It reminds me of this study I read that basically men was calling a woman on the phone, and basically they scored women on how attractive they were, and part of the men were talking to women who they thought were attractive, and another part talked to women who they thought were unattractive, but in reality they were talking to a completely different person. So basically the men that talked to women who they thought were attractive rated these women as warmer compared to the men that talked to women who thought they were unattractive. And also the women ranked the men who thought they were attractive as warmer than the men who thought they were unattractive. So basically, just expecting someone to be something, and for example, they expected this woman to be attractive, and then I think they associated that with being warmer, and then I think by them believing they would be this way and them acting a certain way, it brought out this certain part of that person, and then I think it kind of went back. So basically, if you expect someone to be kind, for example, then they'll probably be kinder. And if you act like it doesn't mean that they'll be super kind, but I think it's definitely beneficial to expect that people are pretty good, because I think they'll be better than. This study was really, really cool. I made a video on it on another channel. That was pretty cool. But yeah, that was pretty crazy actually. But it kind of makes sense, because by expecting someone to be a certain way, it changes the way you interact or whatever.
It could be awkward or unpredictable, so don't risk it. Tickle your brain stem whenever you don't know what to do. Make this your default. Do it so often that you genuinely forget how people are supposed to interact, further solidifying this automatic behavior. Step 3. Be late. Never be early to anything. Always tend to show up right on time or a few minutes late. Don't give anybody the impression that you're prepared, diligent, or have decent time management skills. You don't want to come across as too keen. Plus, being early is awkward. What if you have to talk with somebody you don't really know? Like, what are you gonna do? Make a new friend?
That I was legit gonna say that's how you make a new friend, and he's gonna say make a new friend right now.
Friend? Anyways, when you do run late or make any kind of mistake in life, you should always make excuses.
Also, when you are this way and think this way, think you'll just be in a worse mental headspace overall if you apply these last 3 things he's talking about. Yeah, definitely.
Always or make any kind of mistake in
Yeah,
life,
don't make excuses.
you should always make excuses. Always have some sort of half-baked reason why you did a bad thing. Blame something, anything.
Because basically then you're giving away the power to that thing. And then when you're not in control, then you become a victim, I suppose. And when you become a victim, basically when you are in control of your life, then you're able to steer it in a direction which will lead to a life you want to live. But if you're not in control, then it's basically like you're just out there in the ocean on a boat without any power. So you're just going around and taking where the ocean takes you. And if you make excuses and all of that, I think it's even putting you in a worse situation. Not necessarily. I guess it's the ocean analogy is kind of perfect, because I guess there could be people in your life that tries to pushes you in a good direction, but then there could be people that pushes you in a bad direction. But if you decide to take control, then you can start that motor and then go whichever way you want to go, right? It was actually a pretty good analogy. But yeah, every time I'm talking to someone and they make an excuse, I get this feeling. It goes against. It's just so sad to see, because then they're of course giving away the power, and it's kind of like they're just accepting that this thing in their life is bad. I don't like seeing. It's just so sad. I mean, it's not really gonna affect my life a lot, but I think it's really sad because I know that that's having a negative impact on their life. It's sometimes when I'm talking to people that I know pretty well, and I'm arguing for why they should do this thing, and if they start arguing back, then I'm like, in the end of the day, this won't really affect me. I don't really have a reason to care. It's only gonna affect you. And if they're logical, I don't know if that was the best way, but I say it pretty good when I do it in real life. But they're usually like, oh, true. And that kind of changes their perspective, I suppose. Because maybe they consciously or subconsciously realize that I was arguing for why they should be better, and they were arguing for why they should be or stay worse. But yeah, I'm ranting maybe too much.
Sort of half-baked reason why you did a bad thing. Blame something, anything, but yourself. Never own up to your mistakes or
Take
try
accountability,
earnestly to
man.
correct them. Just cycle through a rotation of excuses and keep track of how recently
That's
you
a
used
sad
them.
life, man.
The bottom line is that you should never admit that your wrongdoing is your fault, even when you know it is.
Can be really hard to do it though sometimes, because admitting that you're wrong sometimes, it just sucks. I don't know if there's a better way to say it, but it just sucks. And maybe I'm not doing it 100% of the time, but I try to do it as much as possible. Maybe that's not really true. I try to do it a lot, and even if I don't always say it out loud, I say it to myself in my head, and I decide that next time I'm gonna be better. But yeah, if you don't accept your faults or your mistakes, I suppose, then I don't know how much better you can become. Rather, what I want to say is I think it's a fundamental part in wanting to better yourself, to take responsibility for your life, for your mistakes, for your successes, for everything. Because that could also be a problem, that people just take responsibility for all the things that goes wrong, but not for the things that goes right. And that's also not really ideal. Then you probably get into a headspace that's not very nice.
Never admit that your wrongdoing is your fault, even when you know it is. Lose track of the last time you apologized. Number 5, develop an external locus of control. Begin to actually believe that nothing is your fault. Choose to believe that everything in your life happens to you and nothing because of you. That you had no part to play in your misfortune. Doing this will trick your subconscious into relinquishing control of your fortune as well. You'll begin to believe that success will just happen to you.
It's a very good way to ruin your life, I suppose. You ruin your entire life. Yep.
Step 6, steal the spotlight. Always find a way to steer the conversation back to your...
One of the things most people really like to do is talk about themselves. We all like to talk about ourselves. Meaning, if you're listening to people and asking more questions and getting deeper into who they are, and just being curious about the things they want to talk about, or act like you're curious about it, then they'll start liking you. My friend, for example, he gave this example. He was in the military, right? And I think a superior of his came out and talked with him for a bit, and I think he was interested in history. And then my man, he just went ham trying to get to know more and more and more about him. And he didn't really say anything. I don't think he said anything about himself. Probably a little bit, but not a lot. So basically, this guy was just talking about himself for like an hour. And then he went in and I think he said that it was a really good conversation. And then he came back the next day. So basically, I've heard it so many times, but people being in conversations where they legit don't say anything about themselves, or basically nothing, and just ask questions about the other person, and then at the end the other person is like, man, I really like you, you're a really cool person, and they don't know shit about you. But yeah, it's good. I especially like doing this when it's on a person that's actually interesting and actually has cool things to say. But yeah, Joe Rogan, I think, is really good at this, because I think he can genuinely become curious about a shit ton of topics. And yeah, the ability to listen and not to listen to say what you're thinking. So basically, sometimes we get a thought that we really want to say, and then we're just waiting for the other person to stop talking so we can say this thing. And if the other person does the same, then it's like two people are just talking against a wall. And I realize sometimes when I'm doing this, and I kind of just feel shit afterwards, and then I try to go ham listening to them, and I often bring back what they were talking about, because even if they do the same thing, I don't want to be that kind of person. And sometimes I realize that I have this urge to just say this thing and waiting to say it, and then I consciously don't say it. I'm becoming better at it. I'm not a pro at this yet, but...
Steal the spotlight. Always find a way to steer the conversation back to yourself. Whatever story you just heard isn't as crazy as that thing that happened to you that one time.
Because also when you're doing this, it's like you're shitting on the other people, because if they tell a story that's really cool to them, and then you start speaking about yourself, then they'll be like, oh, and then they'll feel a bit bad probably. Then they'll probably start associating that with you, which probably won't have a great impact in the beginning, but over time, they'll not like you.
Never ask anybody how they're doing. And if you do, out of courtesy, take the mic back as soon as possible. After all, how are you supposed to get any validation without talking about yourself? And you need as much validation as you can get. Acting...
I guess where you get your self-worth is pretty important, because if you get your self-worth by talking to other people and sharing stories and them giving a certain reaction, then you kind of need to do this. But if you get your self-worth from yourself, from what you do, from what kind of person you are, from what values you have and what values you follow, then you don't really need this as much. And I also think when you get your self-worth from yourself, or value, or whatever, then even if people oppose you and talk bad about you, then you won't feel as bad, and then you're able to go and be alone and bring back yourself to the place you were before. And over time you'll probably start caring less about them. I don't know if you stop caring, obviously, because I haven't gotten to that state, to that place. I haven't done it a lot. When these YouTube things becomes bigger and bigger and bigger, then I'll get to exercise this thing, or try to, like, more and more people will start saying bad things about me, especially on the internet, and then I'll get to train this skill more and more and more. And in the beginning I'm probably gonna be pretty bad at it, but if I try hard, which I'll try, because otherwise my life is probably gonna be pretty shit, then it will probably be pretty cool. And I think that even if I know this will probably be the case, then I still think it's worth it, because I think the things I'm doing could actually help some people, which would be pretty cool. But yeah, getting your validation or whatever, or feeling self-worth from who you are, is fire. But yeah, let's just go
this way around yourself, and you need as much validation as you can get. Acting this way around other people will make you so exhausting to be around that you'll find yourself slowly losing friends instead of gaining them. Step 7. Detract. On the off chance that you're not talking about yourself, make sure to talk about others in a negative light, especially if you can find someone else who shares your toxicity. Cackle and sneer at people you don't like.
People do this so much, and I really try to not do this. And when people, with me, start talking bad about other people, then I'm quite like smile. Or I try to change topic. The ideal thing will probably just be to tell them that let's speak about something else. I don't speak bad about people. But yeah, maybe I still have some maturing to do. I'm not perfect, but I'm trying to become better. But let's continue.
Convince shares your toxicity. Cackle and sneer at people you don't like. Convince yourself that they should know better. Become so proficient at noticing the flaws in others that it becomes an automatic reflex. Let any celebration or words of affirmation sour in your wake.
It feels good to just talk good about people, especially when it feels good to give people compliments, especially since you see how happy they become.
Serve every compliment on your backhand.
And I think in our today society, compliments aren't really the norm. So when you give them, and when you make sure that they're sincere, and especially if you can compliment them on their personality, then it just means more, and it's less. I think it becomes it feels like it's less fake. Even if it's not fake, then if you're you know, when you only care about appearance and stuff, it can feel like that if you give compliments about, I don't know, I guess you can say that they look good or have a nice sweater or something. But especially, I think when you give compliments about their personality, then it becomes deeper. And if you think about it for like a minute before and try to really find something that you think is pretty cool and that you genuinely believe, then they'll just be like, oh, nice. They're like, whoa. And then they'll probably not be able to not smile if it's like sincere and you do it in a good way, I suppose. Probably also depends on what mood they're in, but maybe not. I don't know. I guess you can kind of feel when people give you sincere compliments.
Affirmation sour in your wake. Serve every compliment on your backhand. Step 8. Shapeshift. Say one thing, do another. Act one way in front of others, and another way behind closed doors. Live your life as if you're several different people. Be unpredictable, even to yourself. A chameleon. Whatever you need to be at any given moment. Be so unfamiliar with your own moral standards that
then even if you get into relationships with people, if it's friends or partners or whatever, then even if they'll give you love, then it won't mean as much because they're not giving that love to the person you really are, but just to the person you show them. And then maybe you'll have the thought in the back of your head like, oh, if you really knew who I was, whatever, then you wouldn't like me or whatever. Or that they're not complimenting who you really are, but who you're showing them or whatever.
That you lose any sense of identity.
Not ideal.
Step 9. Wish. Never surrender yourself to the effort of planning or the humility of prayer. Simply wish for things to be different. Fantasize daily about your perfect world and your perfect life. Reject the cards you've been dealt. Refuse to play an active role in the shaping of your destiny. Just wait for the knight in shining armor to come prancing down the hill. Step 10. Shrink. Regularly participate in activities that steal your life. Don't engage in behaviors that make you feel strong. Always take the path of least resistance. Convince yourself that what's good for you is bad and what's bad for you is good.
I mean, fortunately, I'd say, I haven't gone that deep into that road of doing shit like that, but when you do hard things that are good for you, for example, if you go out on a run that you really don't want to do, then, or if you do a cold shower that, man, I didn't want to do that, then it feels good. Or maybe it doesn't feel as, but you get a feeling of accomplishment, I think, if it was really hard, and you get some kind of good feeling at the end of it. But also, if you do things like this daily in your life, then it will start to change who you are. And I think you'll just feel better about yourself, because you're doing things that are good for you, and you're doing things even though you don't feel like it, which you can take pride in, and you'll just feel better. So partly, if you do things like running and take cold showers, then you'll physically legit become better, but because of all the mental things that are connected to them, you'll also feel better mentally. And it's not like this, of course, but it's good.
Step 11. Despair. Believe that you are unworthy of redemption, that somehow your flaws are unforgivable. Actively reject your own forgiveness.
I mean, even if that was true, if you do something that's really bad, then why not do things that's good to try to at least make the difference smaller? But you can probably be forgiven as well for it. But yeah.
Subscribe to the idea that no matter what you do, you're destined for condemnation. Believe that you are fundamentally bad, and since condemnation.
Condemnation. The expression of worse wrong, disapproval, censure. The action of condemning. Oh, that you're destined for. I guess you're destined to be looked upon in a way that's not good.
Believe that you are fundamentally bad, and since human beings tend to act according to what...
I believe your actions speaks for whether you're good or not. Or it's pretty hard, because if you have good intention, but the thing you do actually has a negative impact, then are you a good person? That's a pretty deep question. Because in spirit you mean well, but the thing you actually do doesn't have a good impact. So think about that for a second.
You are fundamental.
I know my job is kind of to think about it, but I think this video is getting too long, honestly.
Bad. And since human beings tend to act according to what they believe they are, this will make it much easier to continue doing bad things.
True, if you believe you're bad, then you'll act bad, but if you believe you're good, then you'll be drawn to more things that will make you good, or drawn to act in ways that will make you good, at least over time, right?
It's just who you are.
True.
Live your life as if you've been dead for 20 years,
Whoa.
And it's already too late to change anything. You had your shot.
That's so true, man. That's so true.
It's over.
I don't mean it's true that you don't have any way to redeem yourself, but the way he said it, if you believe that, then man, that's not ideal, I don't think.
Thank you to...
Yup, I thought it was gonna be a sponsor, but man, I like this video, man. It was good. 11,000 comments, that's a lot of comments. But if you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe, and do the same to this guy, of course. And if you want me to react to any specific videos or any YouTuber, then let me know. Have a good day, and